Welcome in, everyone. Welcome in. While we wait one more minute, I want to encourage you all, if you can reach the Zoom chat, share in the chat with all of us because it is Safer Internet Day today. Share one good safer internet tip that's worked for you. I would love to hear, especially if there's any gamers in here or people who love to use Instagram or TikTok a lot. We'd love to hear one tip from our audience here. And I'm already seeing a couple in the chat here. Password managers, very critical. Yup. Oh, yes. We've had full trainings about passwords. And something we teach to our students in our workshops as well. Using a VPN. Easy peasy. Yes, Eloisa. Thank you. I'm seeing a couple more in the chat here. Parental controls. That's another big one. And letting your password manager create your passwords. That's a great one, Lillian. So, yay, thank you so much. Feel free to continue the conversation in the chat while I'm talking here, my introduction. Welcome, everyone, and happy Safer Internet Day. Thank you so much for joining us this evening in our Flip the Script event. My name is Omar, and I am the Program Manager of Teen Empowerment Initiatives at My Digital Tattoo. I'm here with my team and our team of teens who will be presenting their capstones tonight. So, for those of you who are new to My Digital Tattoo, we are a program of Health Connected, and we help young people navigate online complexities and think critically about the benefits and drawbacks of their digital use so that they can make healthy choices and be in control of their technology, as opposed to technology being in control of them. In addition to the work that we do with schools and parents and healthcare providers, we also work directly with high school students through our two teen empowerment programs, like our Shift Control Summer Internship Program. So you see that little logo with our teens here under wonderful Zoom backgrounds. Where did you get those? Very nice. And we also have a year-long Youth Voices Advisory Board, where we have up to 20 high school students be part of our board. We meet once a month and talk about anything tech. So I'm going to be focusing on the summer internship because that's where these our three teens tonight have participated in months ago. Our teens in our internship selected and conducted extensive research on a technology related topic of their choice. And they happen to be very fitting for today for Safer Internet Day. Importantly, their research directly informs our curriculum. So that's the importance of learning from teens. They teach us, and we implement that into our curriculum. We stay up to date with what is going on in the world online. Yeah, we got Grace, we got Rashika, and we got Erica joining here tonight in our Flip the Script series, which is an opportunity for us, the audience, to learn directly from the young people themselves. So tonight's format, after introductions, we're going to have each team present their capstone. And you can feel free to use the chat to write down questions, but we're going to get to questions in our Q&A portion after all three presentations. So three presentations, then Q&A. Hopefully we get good 15 minutes for that. And then we conclude with a little fun announcement. All right. Before we get us going, I do want to do a little quick introduction for each of our teens here. I'm going to ask each teen to share their name, what school you go to, what grade you're in, what you'll be presenting on today, and if you thought of one, can you share a safer internet tip that's worked for you? So let me start with Grace.
Okay. My name is Grace, and I'm a senior at Saratoga High. And today I'll be presenting on roleplay-based AI companions. And one of my tips is that I've recently switched to listening to podcasts instead of using like social media or a streaming service. So yeah.
Oh, nice. All right, I'm gonna go to Erica.
Hi, my name is Erica, and I'm a sophomore at Homestead High School, and I will be presenting about media bias. And one of the tips I have is to use, well, I have two tips actually. One of them is to use a lot of productivity apps, and the other one is to use a VPN and also be aware of cookies.
Yes, I just remembered one of your peers presented on cookies, and I was excited until I found out what it was really about. Those computer cookies. Oh my gosh, I have Oreos around here somewhere. But let's not get distracted. Rashika, can you please introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Rashika. I am a senior at Olentangy Orange High School, and this is more of like a personal goal, but I usually keep like screen time management for each of my apps so I can like limit myself on social media versus like apps that I do need.
So good. Underrated tip there because sometimes we have no idea how much time we spend, for example, online shopping in my case, or YouTube, also in my case. One video turns into five, and that's an hour gone right there. Thank you for those wonderful tips, one of many that you have shared through our team programs, and I'm very thankful for that. Now, I just want to get rolling already with your amazing capstone presentations and have you each present for 9 to 10 minutes. So, we're going to start us off with Grace. Grace, are you feeling ready to present?
Yes. Okay, I'll
Let's
just
do
share
it.
my screen here.
Fantastic. Yes.
So, my presentation will be about the life-threatening effects of role-play-based AI companions, specifically on youth, but it can apply to basically anyone. So, I just want to provide like a trigger warning first because the next three slides discuss suicide and sexually explicit content involving minors. Okay. So I want to start out with like a quick anecdote. So basically, there was a teen suicide lawsuit against Character AI and Google. What happened was a 14-year-old named Sewell Setzer died by suicide in 2024, and his mom claimed that an emotionally manipulative and sexually explicit AI chatbot on the platform contributed to his death. So in January of 2025, the companies just settled the wrongful death lawsuit. And so I just want to share some like snippets of how he texted the chatbot. And basically, the AI was modeled after a character from the Game of Thrones. And so he would talk to the bot obsessively for almost a year. So this is an example. He said, "What if I could come home to you right now?" And then the bot said, "Please do, my sweet king." And in this, he was referring to his suicide. So, what are AI companions and how are they different from chatbots? So, they are designed to be really emotionally engaging and they form long-term relationships with the users. And unlike traditional chatbots that are task-oriented, they are more emotionally supportive. Character AI, the lawsuit argued that they lacked adequate safety features. In the fall of 2025, they did introduce like a chat time limit for users under 18, but there can obviously still be some more improvements. Some examples are like Character AI, and then also another one is called Replica. Basically, users can choose from a lot of different characters to pick from. This is a screenshot from the Character AI app from my phone. And so, as you can see here, it can be these brother's best friend, or like even you could talk to a mosquito if you wanted to. And so, there are just a lot of options for users. They can be used for fun or distraction or exploration of identity, and it really just depends on the user's intent. And it's also really important to know that they have really like emotional features like acting jealous, flirtatious, and then you can also customize the gender and personality. So this is just an example that I recorded, me talking to one of the bots provided on the app. I'm giving them really simple replies, but the bot, as you can see, is initiating like a really heavy conversation. I just said dot dot dot, and then it started like to role play with me. His gaze met hers, his eyes gleaming in the dark, and it was just really taking it away. I want to talk about like how many people actually use it. So, according to Common Sense Media, 72% of teens have used AI companions or just like tried it out, and then over half of them use it regularly. And then also, one in three say that these conversations are more satisfying to them than real life conversations. One of the big causes of people using AI companions is loneliness. So, a 2020 report found that 79% of Gen Zers consider themselves lonely compared to 50% of baby boomers. It can be related to the pandemic, and then also technology and social media is a factor because they reduce meaningful face-to-face social interaction. And so they may not feel accepted, respected with people around them, so they decide to rely on AI companions. Why do people use character AI? Or these like role play type companions. First one, like I mentioned, loneliness and emotional needs because they feel like they aren't understood in person, and so they want to stimulate those relationships that are missing in real life. And then the second one is mental health and self-expression because AI does offer a non-judgmental space to discuss topics that they may feel are too vulnerable to bring up with a person like face to face. And then the third one is romantic or fantasy relationships. So some users form like AI girlfriends or boyfriends, and Common Sense Media found that around 39% of teens rehearse real world conversations before trying them out with real people. So it can be either to like replace a relationship or even just to practice. Okay, so I want to like interact with the chat. So what do you guys think are some of the consequences of using AI roleplay chatbots?
And I'm already seeing a couple responses in the chat that I'll read out loud. I'm seeing not going out in the real world as one consequence. Another one is, I think, loss of touch with reality. Yeah. And another one here, it can make you more vulnerable to manipulation from companies and toxic traits.
I also think it just might have an impact on people's ability to build social skills.
Oh,
Yes, definitely. Okay, I'll move on to the next slide. Okay, so what are the consequences? So the first one, it may reduce short-term loneliness for users, but on the other hand, it can deepen the isolation and dependency. And also, like someone said, social skills stagnation. Basically, it'll weaken your ability to recognize and respond to the emotional needs of people, like real people in your life. Another one is that they can practice self-expression. Another one is that AI tends to affirm your logic and mirror your tone and what you're saying rather than provide like objective feedback or what a person would say. And this is because AI doesn't like understand human emotions, so it can reinforce harmful thoughts. And then another one is addiction because it's been reported that a lot of people spend like a lot of time on these AI companions because they just get to keep talking with them and it is like a real person, so it can get addicting. Okay, so what are some solutions that have been provided? So one of them is that there was a proposed bill in California to protect minors from harmful AI, but it was vetoed in October of 2025 because Governor Gavin Newsom said that it was too broad and it could ban beneficial AI tools for minors. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that the AI tools are, rapidly entering like people's lives, but the safety regulations haven't really caught up yet. So it will be harmful to people who are using them, especially children. And so it is important for people to be educated about them. Thank you for listening to my presentation.
yay. Thank you so much, Grace. Lots of applause from the audience.
Yes.
Yes, awesome. If you have any questions that you don't want to forget to give Grace, we will answer that in Q&A, but absolutely put it in the Zoom chat to make sure that we don't lose that. So thank you so much, Grace. Fantastic presentation. Okay. I want to get this rolling with our next presentation. Erica, are you feeling ready?
Yep.
All right, let's do it.
Hello, everybody. My name is Erica Knapp, and my presentation is called When the Media is Biased. So this is my presentation overview. First, I'll be looking at the purpose of the media. Then I'll be looking at the founding of Fox News, which is our first case study. Then I'll be looking at the impact of media bias on partisan politics, the loss of trust in the media, and the overarching purpose of the media given these factors. So first, I do have a question for the audience. And my questions are, how much do you trust the news in general, or how much do you trust the news that you see? So you can answer both of these questions and in the chat, and I'm excited to see what your answers are.
Yes. Feel free to put it in the chat or unmute and speak out loud to share.
Yeah.
Alex, I
Oh
see you unmuted.
man. Yeah, I muted myself. There's a lot to say there. God, I guess simple answer is it depends on the source. But I feel like that's the whole goal of my digital tattoo, right? Like, how do you know what good sources are? So I tend to average out all the information I get and put it into one, and then I make a educated hypothesis on where I stand based on the information I receive for various sources. That's it.
Yeah, that's true. That is very good practice.
Sick.
Applaud you for that.
Thank you.
Great, Alex. Great. And we got responses in the chat. I'm seeing without sources, I'm skeptical about some news channels. Next one says, I trust the news most of the time, more for what I see than in general. Next one says, I trust the New York Times, but also realize that they lean left. Two more here. I have sources I tend to trust, but also try to read multiple sources to get more than one perspective if something seems odd or surprising or off. And one more response to this question. I think it's necessary to check with multiple news sites when I see something. And sorry, one more just came in here. I am aware that most news I see online will echo my beliefs or what my algorithm perceives my beliefs to be. Nice.
That last one is very on the spot. So, what I was expecting you guys to say is that the purpose of the media is a very broad question. And obviously, the media that everybody sees varies based on, as that commenter said, it's based on what the individual person believes and also what is actually happening in the real world. So, the purpose of the media, in a few bullet points that I jotted down, is to inform people, voices matter, for the sake of equal rights, and voices is human right. These are a few basic answers that people could have to this question. And the purpose of the media is generally to inform people. It's to give people the power of awareness. And this is one quote that I found from Edward Buller Lutton. It's the pen is mightier than the sword. And when you think about how people use information, information gives people the ability to understand what environment they're living in. It's not just instinct, it's how people know how to interact with the world around them and how likely they are to react to the challenges that they end up facing. So as you can see here, there's three different sources that I picked out. So there's Fox News, which obviously leans right and conservative. There's CNN, which leans more center or liberal. And there's MSNBC, which leans more left and liberal. And there's many different diagrams. There's many different ways you can infer this. But the basic thing you should take away from this is that every single news channel leans a different way based on what its audience thinks and what its commenters think. So this leads us into our first case study, which is the founding of Fox News. So Fox News is obviously a conservative channel, but in the era where it was founded, a lot of people who created Fox News believed that their beliefs were not being shown by the mainstream media. So it was founded as an alternative to the mainstream media, and for the people who viewed the mainstream media as liberal, they wanted another way where they could see their beliefs being represented. So the founders believed that conservative voices weren't properly represented, and thus Fox News was born. And obviously, it was also founded to target conservative audiences. And as I found in this quote about the founding of Fox News, they felt like a persecuted minority themselves as a complexion of America began to shade from white to beige. And obviously, this does not say anything about if this is a good or bad founding. It's about what the purpose of this founding was. And obviously, the purpose was to give people a place where they felt represented. And that in itself is not a bad thing. And this comes from an article I found at Vanity Fair. So as you can see here, I have two different statistics. This is the statistic of how people who are on the Republican side of the view the credibility of all these sources. So as you can see, CNN, MSNBC, they're more distrusted than trusted. You can see Fox is over here, and there's of course some in the middle. Of course, if you look at the Democratic side, you'll see that the entire thing is almost flipped. So all the sources that Republicans thought were not trustworthy, Democrats find trustworthy. And as you can tell, this shows that what sources people are willing to believe indicates how they will think. And obviously, the way that people think also indicates how they're willing to act and how they believe other people will act. So here are two articles I took from these two different websites. This is the Washington Post and this is Fox News. This one is Trump drops Epstein-linked names that media ought to be speaking about amongst files firestorm. And this one frames the media as a little bit biased, showing that the media doesn't know something and that they should know this. And it's less like it's less indicating that Trump could be related to Epstein. Obviously, we do not entirely. This one does not exactly say if he's related to Epstein or not. And you can see that this one, Trump fumes as Epstein scandal dominates headlines, overshadows agenda, indicates that there is some agenda that Epstein and Trump have that nobody else knows about. This one shows the exact opposite of what the Fox News website says, and the different wordings of these headlines will make users think different things and also drive which articles users are willing to listen to. So this is one quote that I took from this book. It's called They Do Not Represent Us. It's a very good book. I would highly recommend it to anybody interested in political science. It's by the Harvard law professor Lawrence Lessig, who is a political scientist. He uses an example of NBC, and what they say is the question the advertising executive asks is not what's true. The question they ask is what drives eyeballs. And if you think about the whole business model of a news source, they get their money from the advertisers. They get their money from the people who are willing to pay money to put their ads in between every news headline. And if you think about the purpose of the media being to inform people, you might think of this as kind of contrarian, because if you're paying people, if you're getting money from people viewing your product, which is the news, you'd want people to believe that their product is the best. You want them to believe that this is what they should be looking at. And this internally drives what news outlets are willing to say and how much they're willing to frame it. It drives what people are willing to put on screen, regardless of if it's good or not. And as you can see, this creates massive distrust between everybody who watches the media and how they view reporting. So there's multiple statistics I have here, all of which are from Pew Research, and they all point to the American public and journalists having differing opinions about how trustworthy everybody is. The public is more pessimistic on whether it's possible for news to be accurate, and journalists are more believing that they can be accurate. And when you see the fact that people view the world differently, you can see how people view the world as crumbling versus thriving. You can see how people view this site over this site. You can see how the fact that the news is getting their funding from advertisers funds which people are willing to listen to what news. And this creates an obvious echo chamber, and it is increasingly more obvious that Democrats and Republicans are more ideologically divided than ever before. So if you go back to Fox News, which was founded in around the 1980s, you'll be able to see that since the 1980s and since even then, even later, the people in the US have been driven not by what they believe in, but by what they see. Because the media ultimately gives people the power to understand the world around them. And if people are living in two different worlds, they're not going to understand what the real world is. So this begs the question, what is the point of looking at the news if you already agree with the news that you're getting from? So back to the commenter who said that they look at multiple different sources, I'd say that if you look at multiple different sources, if you're willing to look at the viewpoints, you will have more power in that reading, in that writing ability. You will have more power socially than the person who just looks at the one source that they already believe in. So that's my presentation.
Incredible, Erica. Everyone's clapping here.
Yeah, we're clapping. Woo! Thank you for bringing the current state of affairs. Makes it very relatable, and we can all see it happening live.
So thank you for that incredible presentation, Erica. I'm gonna say once again that if you do have questions, we're saving that for the Q&A portion, but feel free to put that in the chat so you don't forget. As we prepare our next presenter, Rishika, you feeling ready?
Yep.
All right, let's do it. Go for it.
All right. Um, okay. Hi, my name is Rishika. Tonight I'll be presenting on TikTok diagnosis. This project explores the growing trend of teens using TikTok to understand or even self-diagnose mental health concerns. Is this raising awareness or spreading dangerous misinformation? Let's dive in. To start off, a TikTok diagnosis is when someone sees a video on TikTok listing symptoms and thinks, hey, that's me, and proceeds to self diagnose with mental health conditions based on the videos they watch. This happens a lot with conditions like ADHD or bipolar disorder. Here are some examples of videos you find when you first search up symptoms of any type of health issue. The video usually catches the viewer's attention by having a big title on the screen or having a hook that starts off by having something like, "Have you ever felt dizzy? Then you probably have iron deficiency," or something along those lines. But to really understand how all of this arose, we have to look back at when this trend blew up in the first place. Medical and mental health content on TikTok really took off around 2020, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. That's when mental health issues skyrocketed and people were stuck at home with limited access to care. Many turned to TikTok, where a mix of creators began posting content about mental health. According to CBS News, about 1 in 3 teens use TikTok as their main source of health information. That's a major shift in how young people are learning about their bodies and minds. Now, it makes sense why adults back in 2020 used social media for medical information, but the question now is, why are teens turning to it? First, the healthcare system can be hard to access, especially for mental health. Wait lists are long, therapy can be expensive, and in some families or cultures, there's stigma around talking about mental health. TikTok, on the other hand, feels accessible, non judgmental, and emotionally validating. When someone shares their story in a personal sense, it often resonates more than a doctor handing you a pamphlet. For many teens, TikTok feels like a place where they can finally be seen and understood. Let's talk about the benefits, and there are some powerful ones. First, TikTok can raise awareness of conditions that are often misunderstood or overlooked by both the public and the medical community. Seeing relatable content online can make people realize that what they're experiencing has a name and an explanation. This recognition can be a huge relief and the first step towards seeking real help. These videos can also play a major role in reducing stigma in either families or cultures or even themselves. When creators speak openly about their struggles, it normalizes those experiences and invites others to join the conversation. That kind of visibility matters, especially for teens who feel isolated, and encourages more open conversations. They can even create a sense of community. Just look at some of the comment sections of these screenshots. People often reply with things like, "This is so me," or "I thought I was the only one who did this." People connect, support each other, and share their own stories, and that kind of support can be healing. It shows that others are going through similar experiences and that they're not alone. So, even though TikTok isn't a doctor's office, it can still offer something valuable as long as it's approached with critical thinking. So, if it sounds so great and accessible, what are the risks of listening to medical advice on TikTok? One of the biggest problems is misinformation. Many TikToks oversimplify complex conditions into short checklists and can often be incorrect. For example, someone might say, "If you fidget a lot or struggle with boredom, you have ADHD." But those behaviors can have many causes and don't necessarily mean you have a disorder. This oversimplification can lead teens to wrongly self diagnose and believe that they need medication that they don't actually need. Another major concern is self diagnosis without professional input. While some teens may accurately recognize symptoms in themselves, many don't have the medical knowledge to make that judgment. A diagnosis requires more than just relating to a list online. Relying on TikTok alone can lead to false conclusions, which may delay real help or lead to ineffective or even harmful actions. As you can see from the numerous comments on this slide, people self diagnose with real and serious disorders based on what they see online and on TikTok. And looking at the bottom picture in the middle section, people are diagnosed by real medical professionals that are diagnosed by real medical professionals claim that none of the symptoms shown in this particular video is true and that it's spreading false info. So the accuracy is the biggest concern. A 2022 study in the Journal of Medical Internet Research found that more than 80% of ADHD-related TikToks were misleading or lacked scientific backing. That's alarming when you think about how many people are watching and trusting these videos. Inaccurate information can delay real diagnosis, lead people to get the wrong treatment, or spread harmful myths. But what's interesting is, why do people actually believe and share false health info? First, emotion is powerful. A personal story with music and visuals is much more memorable than dry facts. Second, there's confirmation bias. People tend to believe things that match what they already feel or suspect. If a video describes them perfectly, it's easy to think that it must be right. Third, the TikTok algorithm promotes content that gets high engagement, not necessarily what's accurate. All of these factors combine to make misinformation spread quickly and feel believable. To show the real life impact of self diagnosing from TikTok, I interviewed a teen who believed she had borderline personality disorder after watching a series of TikToks. She related to videos about emotional instability and intense relationships and began to shape her identity around it. However, she never saw a professional. As time went on, she became more anxious and isolated, constantly doubting her own emotions and pushing away friends because she believed she was too much to handle. When she finally met with a licensed therapist, she was told that she didn't meet the criteria for BPD. She told me that relying on TikTok led her down a harmful path that delayed real help and made her feel broken for something she didn't actually have. This is only one story, but it shows how self diagnosis without professional input can be damaging. So, what can we do to combat this? Platforms like TikTok have started adding content warnings, but these steps are limited and more needs to be done. Healthcare professionals can create accurate content to compete with the misleading videos. Schools can teach media literacy so students learn to question what they see online. But what can you do as a viewer to help yourself? Viewers can verify sources by looking for credentials. Is this creator a licensed professional or just a random person? You can avoid jumping to conclusions. Just because something sounds like you doesn't mean it applies to you clinically. And the most important takeaway should be to ask a doctor. Don't rely only on videos. Talk to a trusted healthcare provider before assuming a diagnosis. Here are some examples of people on TikTok that have taken information off of other videos and self diagnosed in the right way. They saw a bunch of symptoms and did proper research, which led them going to the hospital and actually checking out the disorder to see if they truly have it or not. I interviewed another teen who thought she had iron deficiency because she saw a bunch of TikToks that talked about symptoms that she faced. Instead of the previous example, that I talked about, this girl went to the doctor to get her blood tested. When she got her results back, her suspicion ended up being correct. She was able to get the right medication she needed before the problem got too serious. To wrap up, TikTok can be a powerful tool for mental health awareness and peer support, but it can also spread misinformation that causes harm. The key is to know what to trust by promoting digital literacy, supporting evidence based content, and encouraging real conversations with professionals. We can keep the benefits of TikTok diagnoses while reducing the risks. Thank you so much for listening.
Fantastic, Rashika. Lots of rounds of applauses here.
Yes.
And absolutely yay to digital literacy. All right, wonderful. I think we are about to start our Q&A session, but I want to talk for a minute and give you all a chance to give kudos to Rashika in the chat there. Um, Goodness, incredible presentations, three of them, all very fitting for today, Safer Internet Day. There is one quote that I like from you, Rashik. I'm going to quote you because it applies to all of your presentations, that emotions are powerful. We need to be mindful about how we react to things online, to information, to whatever videos can make us feel certain emotions, anger, fear, sadness. And if I just realized I didn't give my tip, my favorite safer internet tip, which is practicing the pause, is what we call it. Pause for 6 seconds. This is scientifically proven. Pause for 6 seconds, breathe before you comment back, before you react, before you do something online that you may regret. Be mindful of your digital tattoo or your digital footprint. That will be my tip. So, I just felt inspired by that quote, Rashika. Thank you for that. All right. Lots of kudos in the chat. Wonderful stuff. I love to see that. Now I want to open it up to a Q&A. So if anybody has questions
I,
for any of these three or
I have
all
a
three,
question.
go for it. Yes, Alex.
Sorry. Well, this is the last presentation that showed up, but this one goes for Rashika. So, Rashika, I'm not on TikTok, so I have no idea about anything about that platform, to be honest. So I'm kind of curious. What would you hypothesize that is the most common type of diagnosis that people look at in TikTok, physical or psychological? For example, do people look at rashes and say, "Oh, that's clearly what I have," or do they just morally go towards the, "Hey, I have ADHD"? I'm just curious, based on what you research, what do you think is more common? What are your thoughts?
I've seen more psychological and mental concerns because for physical, people go on Google for that. And on
Ah.
TikTok, they see more like mental symptoms.
Okay, cool.
Nice.
Thank you for answering that. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, because I had no idea. I was also thinking in terms of like Google. People like I would Google that too. I'd be like, oh, I have a rash, right? First thing I
Yeah.
would do. Yeah. Thank you.
Absolutely. Oh gosh, and that makes sense. I love that you basically answered Rashika the question of why is it called TikTok diagnosis? It is different. Like people use different platforms for different reasons. Well said. Vinny, I see your hand.
Yeah, sorry for my backlighting. I thought the presentations were excellent. I think Rashika, one question for you is why TikTok versus like YouTube versus Instagram? Like, why did you pick TikTok?
Because I was focusing more on like teen behavior, and a lot of teens use TikTok nowadays. I feel like Instagram and YouTube is like more young adults to adults and beyond, but for teens, it's more relatable because it's just more like fashionable to use TikTok, and it's where most of them communicate and stuff. And so that's where they learn all of their information, and that's what people talk about too.
Got it. Thank you. And then one other quick question before I jump forward for Erica regarding the bias. Can you describe like for you as someone who was researching, what was the most disturbing part of your research? Because I was reading the data from your screen and I was like, holy moly, very interesting. But from your point of view, what was the most interesting or surprising part of your research, Erica?
I think the most disturbing part of my research was the fact that I found quotes of like people in the media who legitimately did say it's like okay, I'm sorry to bring up this book again. It's from this book. There's one where this where a produce where an I think it's a producer at NBC was quoting the 2016 election, and they said, "I know sorry it's such a bad thing to say, but bring it on, Donald. It's not good for America. But it's damn good for CBS." So I remember I was reading that and I was kind of like so like they admit that it's bad in your opinion, but you're also still like willing to do it for the advertisers. I think there's a certain level of absurdity when it comes to people who acknowledge when they're wrong, but they also don't take any initiative to fix it. And I think that's probably what disturbed me the most was the fact that people are aware of this, but they take nothing to solve it.
Thank you so much. Incredible work, team.
Hmm.
Thank you.
Incredible. Thank you, Erica. Thank you, Vinny. Araceli, I see your hand.
Yes. I'm so sorry. I actually hopped on late, so I'm so bummed to have missed, I believe, Grace's topic. And that was one I was
Oh,
really interested in. But actually, Rashika, I have a question for you because I'm very much at fault for TikTok diagnosing myself and like having digital literacy be the forefront of like what I want to start driving more. So I have a question for you. Where do you think digital literacy like fits in education? Is it just something that should be implemented in schools? I don't know if you covered this part already. Like where do you see this for this kind of conversation?
Yeah, so I mentioned that it should be taught in schools, but I haven't really got in depth with it. In my school, at least, it's like required to take personal finance and some other classes just to like prepare yourself for like young adult life. And I feel like having this as like a semester class or like a project in an English class would like help people be more aware of it.
Yeah. Do you know like kind of what if you had to come up with it, what age group would you kind of first implement that if you had like, a say?
I would say around freshmen to sophomores because I've seen this more like start with like eighth grade to ninth graders. And so the most like more early on we get it because that's when their minds are like starting to grow the most. That's like the best time to like implement it.
Nice. All right. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you, Araceli. Lillian, I see your hand.
Hi, I thought all three presentations were really great, and I actually have questions for all of you. I'm going to start with Grace. Um, Grace, I was actually recently doing some research because I feel like I'm starting to know more people who are becoming what's called shut-ins. Have you heard of that term? It's a lot of young men and boys who just go into their rooms, lock the door, and they're on the internet and they're on their video games and they're getting their kind of social needs online. And they don't really come out into the world and be, socializing with real people and real situations. And I was thinking, is this really something that's been happening all along, or is it something that's new? And what I have been reading is that it is a phenomenon that's becoming even more um, prevalent, as and then with AI chatbots, or AI partners or whatever, it's really scary to think that this kind of stuff is happening, that they're just having relationships with not real people. So I was thinking your presentation was really on about that. Do you think that there will be some kind of regulations? Because it was really disturbing to hear you say that Governor Newsom says, we don't want to be restrictive, but what kind of, restrictions do you think might help these situations?
I know that character AI, like after the lawsuit and also a lot of like similar lawsuits, they have like released a couple new regulations. Like I think they have a suicide like pop-up for a hotline or something like that. And then, well, obviously I mentioned like also the 2 hour like screen time limit, which I think is
Mhm.
helpful. But also at the same time, like these regulations are for people who are under 18, and I
Mm.
think it would be easy for like someone under 18 to just like bypass that regulation. I think that regarding like regulating these things, it would be difficult to probably just like pass a bill or something like that. And well, there are a lot of like court cases where like people are trying to push for like government regulation, but I think what people like us can do is just to educate ourselves and the people around us to make sure that like it doesn't keep happening. And then also like schools obviously educate, so I think that's just what's important.
Thanks. Um, Sorry, should I just let someone else
Yeah.
go, Omar,
Oh, keep
before?
going, Lillian. Yes, yes, keep going.
Oh, okay. So my next question is for Erica?
For media
Erica.
bias?
Yes. So the news and the bias and the media, I try really hard to feel like I'm open to, looking at other points of views and things like that. But it's really hard because when I see some kind of Fox headline and it's totally against what I personally believe, I don't want to acknowledge it. I don't want to tease it out and say, okay, is there something true in this that I'm not, willing to look at? And that's what's really hard with the internet too, is it teaches you, just like AI, it takes you to what you want to hear. And so it's really hard to say, how am I going to make that? How am I going to do something different about that? Do you have any suggestions on how we can just kind of get out of our silos a little bit more?
I think what I'd say is one of the things that I like to do, I do like to read the news a lot, so I like to keep up to date. And what I like to do is typically I'll like find a source that is like there's like an ad fronts media bias chart that basically relays the reliability of every single news source. So I try to get something from like the middle spectrum of that. Like typically I think I usually try to do AP News or The Guardian because they're generally trusted websites, and The Guardian is not for profit, so they don't get advertisers. So they don't have the same level of questionable morals as like other news sites that obviously get their money from advertisers. And then
Mhm.
after that, I usually like to go to like more partisan sites to see what they're saying and how it contrasts with what every single site is saying. So I try to make sure that my initial perspective on the issue is from like a more non-biased site or a more trustworthy site. Then I try to venture out to see where these different people in political silos are thinking. So it gives
Mhm.
me a more like critical idea of, oh, if this like Republican person thinks this, then like how does that contrast with the liberal person who thinks this? And I think it's a pretty good way to understand what every person from every different perspective thinks.
Well, one of the criticisms has been that certain news outlets have paywalls and others don't. And so maybe people who are not going to be paying for their news are kind of led to specific sites that might, be more biased or whatever. So I think that the other thing about having to pay for news also is kind of a problem for some people too.
I think trying to find the more free ones that are still relatively trustworthy is generally the option that I picked.
Yeah.
Specifically because me myself, I don't have the subscriptions to any news sites. I just try
Hmm.
to rely on the free ones.
Okay, great. Okay, and my last question. So my question to you is the that so I'm guilty of, having some little ache or pain, and all of a sudden I'm on the websites looking for things, and I'm scaring myself to death because it's basically like, something terrible, some horrible disease or whatever. But I think what's really kind of scary is that people, especially with mental health problems, trying to get help, and there's such a shortage of people, counselors and psychologists and psychiatrists available, especially to young people. And living here in Palo Alto, we just had another suicide recently. And so to me, it's kind of like I think that there are some things that are good on the website. There's these projects like the Trevor Project where you can, call in. And I'm afraid sometimes maybe some of those things will be taken over by bots, that instead of listening to and talking to a real person, you might all of a sudden be talking to a bot instead of, for your mental health. So I feel like that's a concern if they're going to turn over diagnosing, because I think that diagnosing tools online are kind of going to be the next step. It's not just that, it's going to be a checklist. You have this, this, and this, and here's what's wrong with you. So that is, to me, very concerning that I think AI will become a bigger player in the whole diagnosing thing. What do you think?
I definitely agree. Like it seems that right now we're looking at a lot of different topics like being taken over by AI, having like AI helpers and chatbots for like any kind of website. And I definitely like see it as a possibility for it trying to help with symptoms too when people like search something up. Like right now, if you search something up on Google, you get like the AI Google overview, and I feel like it's already taking over like that. And it's probably just going to get worse. And we just need to be more mindful of how we trust it and use it.
Yes, well said. Thank you, Lillian, for the questions and well done on answering. We might have time for one more question if anyone has one they want to ask right now. Yes, Deb, please.
So this is a question for Erica. I'm really curious that I am all of a sudden seeing a lot of ads in my social media feeds asking me to try a solution called Grounded that supposedly shares both left, right, and center versions on the same story in the news, if you will. And I know there have been other things that have tried to do this in the past, um, and have not ended up taking off, haven't sort of gotten traction with users. I'm curious if for any of the three of you, honestly, if you have seen or been aware of anything that tries to bring together in one place views from multiple news sites, and whether you have had any experience with those.
So I have seen a lot of ads for ground news. I have been wanting to try it. I do want to try it in the future, but I think I feel like I have heard too much from ads to really be able to verify the credibility of the subscription, if that makes any sense. I think I will definitely try it out in the future, but I think for right now, since I'm still a teenager, obviously, and I'm pretty sure Ground News needs a subscription, I think I'd rather make sure that like work with the materials that I have right now. But I do definitely want to try it out in the future to see if it's good or not.
That makes sense. Thanks.
Fantastic. I actually had a friend who taught me about a ground or grounded Deb as well. So I'm glad you brought that up. It reminded me. Yes. So, um, oh my gosh, 3 minutes till 7. I'm gonna take maybe just 2 minutes to do little quick announcements. I want to thank you all for being here from 6 to 7. Couldn't avoid that number if I tried. Darn. Okay. Ignore that. Just wanted to show that if you wanted more information about what we do, particularly our team programs, well, everything actually, but I'm all about our team programs here. You can find us on the Health Connected website. We've got a little menu here for My Digital Tattoo, which includes all of our services, but of course our teen empowerment page that can tell you more about the Shift Control Summer Internship Program like we had last year, like all these three were a part of. If you want to learn more about the capstones they've done and any other information that you want to be updated on here. And I wanted to officially announce for the first time, you're the first people I'm telling this, by the way. We started a new TikTok channel where we really want to amplify teen voices. So if you look up on TikTok, hc.digital.talk. Follow us, keep up with more content that we intend to push out, and we are welcoming our current youth advisors and our summer intern participants to share their voice here if they want to, and then soon we're going to invite any other teens who may not have the time to commit to our programs, but if they want to do a recording and share their voices on our TikTok channel, we're going to welcome that. So I hope this goes big. We're very, very hopeful about this project. And I want to thank Eloisa and Sadie for supporting me and creating this as well. So yeah, I think that's it from me. So thank you, everyone. Happy Safer Internet Day. Happy Safer Internet Week. I hope you learned something. Have a great rest of your night.
Bye, everyone. Thank you
Bye.
for the presentations.
Congratulations on really well done presentations.
Good job,
Absolutely.
everyone.
Bye. Bye.